the radio thing is playing right now, just so you know. The
Okay.
opening is going on.
Ooh, I might have been the first like.
Hmm. Well, Johnny Million, how are you, my dear friend?
I'm
Um,
doing great.
yeah, I know you had a bit of a morning.
Yeah, I had
Um,
some excitement with Miss Flora this morning, but she's doing good. We got her. I didn't have to drag her to the vet, and they were
okay.
I actually just drove over there
Yes.
after I called and like just sat in there until I saw the doctor, and I was like, "Here's the deal. I don't want to torture my cat and bring her in here,
Yeah.
but I know she needs this kind of antibiotic." And they're like, "Yeah, okay,
Yeah. That's good. I think the stress of sometimes going there is harder on them because you know, it's almost
absolutely."
on the one hand, as as our quasi psychic friends that accompany us on this life on levels we can't appreciate because we don't have the scientific or spiritual analysis capabilities to even comprehend the role
Right.
pets play in our existence, because we are simple people.
Hmm.
That I think part of it is that the cat also knows, dogs also know that one of these days they're going to take me to this place and I'm not coming
And I'm
back.
not coming back. Yeah.
And so they get increasingly wary of said place,
Yeah.
because and it becomes AB logic. Every time I feel bad, I go there slash that place makes me feel bad, which
Yes.
is yeah. Um, so there is um, a there's a huge amount to talk about. I have to explain something too and kind of talk about something. Otherwise, I
Yeah,
won't be
you've
able
got
to
a
focus.
crazy
Focus.
story too.
So yeah, so yesterday during sound check for the Nerd Halen show, where a bunch of guys were opening for us called the Devotees. They're a Devo cover band. They were
Oh,
really
that's
nice. It
delightful.
it was their first performance ever.
How'd they
This is
do?
their first live gig. They did great. They did totally great. But
Did they play
we
Uncontrollable Urge? God, I love that song.
yes, they did.
Mm.
And we were there for sound check. We were just getting started. The bar itself was sort of open to like locals and regulars to come in and get a drink or whatever because it was
Hmm.
afternoon hours, like 6 o'clock.
Oh,
And
this is all just sound check, like you're miles away from the show.
yeah, and not we're not dressed or any of that stuff. We're not in costume or any of that. And a local guy named Bob has been coming to that bar for a long time. He comes after work, apparently 5, 6 o'clock, has a couple drinks, and goes home. Um, for lack of a better phrase, he keeled over while he was standing at the bar. He just dropped, hitting his head really hard on the ground because there was just
Oh
nothing,
no,
nothing stopping him from going down. And
Bob.
I yeah, I turned around just in time to see him start to fall, and
Oof.
then I couldn't tell, like, it's a moment of shock, and then the bartender who knows him started like kind of yelling his name, as you would, and so I
Oh.
I jumped down there and myself the and it was clear he was having a heart attack or a stroke or something. He was breathing, but his pulse got thready, and then it went away, and then he stopped breathing. And so the security guard and I and one of the other girls who worked at the bar were doing. I was doing compressions on him, and the security guard was doing mouth to mouth, and we got him back a couple of times. We would turn him on his side so that in case he wouldn't choke or anything like that because we weren't sure what had caused it. And
Yeah.
they called 911, and the paramedics finally arrived after we were working on him for about 8 minutes, 9 minutes. It was a while. And then, and considering, hats off to the people, the paramedics in Portland, because I'm sure they're overworked, and especially in the neighborhood we were in, and they kept working on him, and he passed away. He myself and the rest of the staff were able to get him to them, so he was breathing when they arrived. But whatever was happening with him was not gonna change. And so, while I'm, while the band is sitting there and the Devo guys are sitting there waiting to go up after us and set up and all that stuff, this fella passed away in the bar about 6 feet from where the stage is, and
Yeesh.
and yeah, and it was a lot for everybody.
The
I don't
only
think
bright side is that this time you did not have to hide the body.
normally I do. You're right. Normally,
Normally you do.
yeah. And interestingly enough, it was it was a very emotional thing for everybody. I didn't realize till afterwards because I dive in those situations. We were putting water on him. It might have been heat stroke. We were trying to cool him down. He started breathing again a couple times, so we thought, okay, that's where he is. He was turning purple at one point, so we had to clear his tongue and breathe for him. And it was just that whole thing. It's like every possible, trying to figure out what's going on with him, trying to get him back. All the stress of that happens in a moment. It's just everybody's adrenaline is up. Everybody's emotional focus is on that moment. And
For
then it's
real.
taken out of your hands, and you're kind of left in this numb, distanced space, right? And so I do. I don't think I have. I don't have PTSD about it, but I do have PTS. The disorder part, I think, is if it rides around with you longer, and I mean, it's never gonna. Those kind of things stick around with you. The last guy I did CPR on was in LAX. He survived, thank God, but he was a Guatemalan grandpa that had been dropped off by his family, and I still see his face every so often. And the respect, I think, and again, the police officers who came afterwards and did the investigation of it, they in Portland and places where there's a high level of addiction, especially, they deal with this kind of thing all the time, and they're so professional about it and respectful and calming. They do,
Yeah.
it's very impressive considering that they do it all the time. It would be very easy. My mom's a nurse. Everybody around her has gallows humor. It is very easy to fall into that as a way to protect your own psyche, to protect your own, because you got to move to the next one. So as soon as they're done with that, they did a 2-hour investigation on what was the cause of death. I don't know, and I don't think anybody will know until they take him, they took him to the morgue and there's an autopsy to figure out what had ultimately happened to him. But I was talking to Summer, and we were, it really like occurred to her, and it was such a smart thing that she brought up, that this is what in a much more shocking level, what the kids that in that school shooting went through as they're being led out of their classroom, and there's a body on the ground that used to be their teacher, used to be their friend. And they, like, I'm aware of how much that guy's face is in my brain right now.
Yep.
And I never saw him in my life until he was in distress. So I will only and ever remember his face as going from clear to purple, back to pink, back to grayish, back to pink and purple again over the course of us working on him. And imagine if we had all known that person and that same thing had happened, and then the people had to follow up and do an investigation, and there he is laying under a tarp. Effectively, they come in and they cover him with a sheet. And so I think people...
And he was not, just to be clear, he was not part of the show later.
No. Well, here's the thing. He was not a member of any of the bands. He was not a bartender or anybody who worked there. He was not staff. He was just a local who came in.
He was not a prop.
No. Although I will say he was certainly with everybody for the show. He was definitely like...
I bet.
because it's... And again, it is a strange emotional quandary. This is what EMT people go through and police officers go through all day, every day. Is that on the one hand, they are abundantly aware, like the rest of us were, that this is a human being with relationships and connections to other people, but we weren't part of that. He's not our connection. As much as I have a connection with him because of what I went through with him, I don't know him as a being. Never got a chance to.
Yeah.
And so there's a weird part of my response to it where, like, how dare I allow myself to become melancholy or fixated on it because of my experience in that moment, and that's a natural feeling, I think, as well. And that's, again, what all first responders go through all day. A police officer or paramedic, their normal day is the worst day of your life. And I want people to recognize that as people, and this does not let the Derek Chauvins of the world off the hook. As a matter of fact, it distances them even further from humanity, because they should not be able to cloak.
I don't know that name.
He's the guy who killed George Floyd by, either through compression or omission.
Ugh. I'm glad I remember George Floyd's name and not his name.
Right. So when you allow the Derek Chauvins of the world to hide themselves and cloak themselves in the field of police officers, when there are a billion interactions, literally a billion interactions between civilians and police, for example, every year, a billion. There are somewhere in the order of 17,000 some odd police departments in the United States. And you know of 8 or 10 situations where bad cops did wrong things, and you should. But you cannot allow those people to cloak themselves in the mass of people who get up every day and from morning till night, bless their hearts, these cops and these EMTs that showed up deal with this all the time. And so I just wanted to show them my respect as well, because it was terrible for the staff who knew Bob. It was very hard on the devotees guys who live here in town, in the area, and will play again and maybe end up at this bar again. And it was their first show and their first experience with something like this. And then to my bandmates, who are just looking on while, their crazy lead singer friend is doing compressions on a guy who just keeled over in a bar, that moments ago we were focused on sound check.
That is surreal.
Yeah. And so the depth, we got to take a break and we'll get into the news of the day. But I want people, when these things happen, and I don't think on our side of the aisle we have a problem understanding the depth of sorrow when it comes to a school shooting or a mass event or a flood that takes a lot of lives or any of that stuff. It's why it's always the Rand Pauls of the world who are stingy with emergency funding after something. And Democrats, by and large, are very forward thinking about rebuilding and sticking with areas, especially where there's been loss of life. That there's not just the deeply connected people that are affected. There's the secondary people who were witnesses and experienced it from the near distance. And then there are the professionals that have to deal with it all the time, that over their lives leads to a shortening of their lives because of their experience dealing with that all the time. And that's all I wanted to say about it. But for those that I didn't live stream yesterday in the afternoon, and we didn't do that. There was a real rather large reason. So, anyways, love to everybody involved, and we'll be back right after this. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I can be the one putting horrible dark humor into that whole situation.
It's totally necessary, my friend. Totally necessary. When we dedicated "Ain't Talking About Love" to Bob last night. It was our last song, and it seemed, you know, inappropriate to the audience that was there that had no idea what had happened and what everybody had gone through. But it was inappropriate not to say anything at all. They sent most of the staff that was there during the day home and brought in new people. So even the people there may have known him, but they weren't there when it happened. So laying that on them at the beginning of the show or explaining it at the top or any of that stuff seemed a lot unnecessarily heavy, on people who are seeking some sort of lighter moment. But the bend to the edge line, I'm going to try not to break.
Yeah, man.
The bend to the edge line, and there I stood and looked
Lost
down.
a lot of friends there, baby.
Mm-hmm. That always gets me.
Yeah, man.
When we're, yeah. And
Yeah,
especially David Lee Roth's
rock and roll poetry is frequently underestimated and underappreciated.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, something as simple as
we're coming back.
Taking whiskey to the. Sorry.
Yeah. So we were talking during the break that we dedicated "Ain't Talking About Love," the last song of the set, to that guy Bob, because of the line. I've been to the edge, and there I stood and looked down, when I I have to be honest, in a comedy show where we're dressed very silly and we're doing this music, that line always gets me. And I think maybe it's directly related to, we started Nerd Halen right before COVID. We did like 4 shows and then COVID happened. And there was so much pain associated with that time. And I lost several people. And that as soon as we started back, it's on, and I promise we'll move on to the news today because there's plenty of it. But on Queer as Folk, whenever I needed to cry in character, I would infuse words in the other actor's dialogue or a moment with an emotion so that I did not have to rely on what I was saying to make me emote. I would simply put a lot of weight on a word, and that would do it. I would think of the word that they're going to say right before the emotion in the script is supposed to hit me, and I would just pile life on top of it. People I'd lost, emotions, stuff I'd gone through, experiences I had, whatever that emotion was that needed to trigger, I would load it into that word, and I would basically hypnotize myself with that word. And then when they said it, I couldn't stop myself from crying. I couldn't stop myself from feeling it. I didn't have to work at it at all, right? And the reason I know how that works and why that became my own technique that I just kind of made up as an actor was because, as the melancholy son of a gun that I am, that always worked for me. Certain songs always triggered that. Prince's "Sometimes It Snows in April." Every time.
Do that one, please.
Yeah. And so that line in the song, just, even though we're dressed silly and I'm all sweaty and we've just done Pound Cake and other songs and whatever, when we get to that line at the end of the show, it just hits me. So it seemed appropriate in that moment. Now, moving on, and I do want to get to a bunch of what's going on, because this week, not only this week, do we have the, hold on, are we, is all the live stream working, or is this just a dead window? I hope so. All right.
No one in the chat's freaking out, and it's okay.
Okay. That there's not only there's a couple of things I think. I've got Sexy Liberal Portland tonight, and after the show today, the radio show this morning, I will kind of work in earnest on what my set will be. Because at any other time in history, I would write jokes a week before, a month before. I would be working on stuff for 6-10 weeks. But with Donald Trump and his ilk, there's such a clearing of the decks every 24 hours that right when you think, okay, this is the hook that's going to follow us through the election. This is going to be the one. This will be the one thing that that like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous and awful. This has got to, there can't be. There's no way he can top this as far as just being terrible or stupid or both most of the time.
You always wish.
And then comes this answer on childcare yesterday, which I don't know if you heard.
Stunning. Oh, I know all about Childs.
Yeah. And the whole, we've all heard Polita speak, and I couldn't, the irony that maybe there would have been a parallel between, what was her name? Caitlin, I'm blitzing on her name right now. The girl who was, and it's funny, I hesitate to even bring her name up because of the circumstance that she was in.
The poor girl from the beauty pageant who had
she was Miss South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Kate
Upton.
Upton.
How do you feel that?
Yeah,
that
Caitlin Upton.
Can't spot the
And bless her heart, she was 19 years old at the time, or no, yeah, I think so. Just became a viral thing, right? And the interesting thing is curiously, after an answer that, or not even after an answer, in lead up to the debate on Tuesday, J.D. Vance posts the video of her and says, "I've just seen leaked footage of Kamala Harris's debate prep." Right? He brought up that video, and I want people to understand how the Trump Vance ticket is a well-oiled screw-up machine. Because bless her heart and all the associations with it. And the irony is, if it had happened today, she'd be the Haktua girl, and that people would be smiling and treating her way better than they did. That happened, unfortunately, to her during an excessively mean time on the internet. That said, J.D. Vance brings that up, and then right after he brings that up, Donald Trump gives an answer to the childcare question, which is fundamentally worse than what she said.
So much worse.
Right. And he's a grown man who's already been president of the United States for 4 years.
And he's trying to run the free world.
Yeah. And all she was trying to do was win a pageant, and they threw a thing at her, and she was trying to give what was effectively a politically correct answer in the mix of trying to actually answer and avoid answering it the way maybe she really felt, or recognizing that she didn't know enough about it and say that, which, again, in that circumstance, I think we've all learned it's okay in that moment to go, quite frankly, on the specifics of that issue, that's not something I know a lot about, but here's what I know. That I would rather the people of the world get along. And if there's any way we can work towards that, that should be our primary focus, right? As a grown woman, I'm sure that's the answer she would give now as a valuable adult. Donald Trump has been president of the United States already. He is running to be president of the United States again. And he gave an answer that was fundamentally more absurd and useless than Kate Upton gave at 19 years old in a Miss Teen USA.
Like, I expect a politician to, if they don't have a good grasp of the question that's been asked, to circle back to some point that they'd rather make. That happens all the time.
Yes, right.
But he couldn't even manage that. He never managed anything.
He tried. You could, and that's honest to God. And there's two areas where he goes to all the time, and we're up on another break, but I think this is a good follow through. Is
tariffs?
Tariffs, and it never would have happened.
Yeah.
Tariffs is the way he thinks he's going to get a bunch of money to pay off the debt of the country and fix the hole he created. And the other one is it never would have happened anyways. Well, it did. And you can't prove a negative, so how would you solve it now? What would you do? And if you could solve it right now, why aren't you?
Yep.
If there's some magic phrase that Biden could say to Putin that you could relay to him and you're not doing it, you are responsible for every death that happens from that point forward. If you really have a plan that would have solved it and you don't do it, it's on you. Inaction in itself is an aggressive act, especially when it comes to war and peace. We'll be back right after this.
It makes me, it reminds me of like all the times that Elon Musk said that he could save the kids in the mine, and
Right.
all of the wild claims that he made that, nobody else could pull something off, but he could do it. Well, he didn't.
And the other guy who did it,
to,
and he slandered the guy who did, and that guy sued him and won.
There you go.
Interestingly enough, the shooter and his father also being charged.
Yeah.
If we're not going to get meaningful gun, well, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about it on the air because I think we have to.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know where you're headed, and I can't wait to hear more.
Mm-hmm. Is he a grown man, really? Says somebody in the chat. I saw that just go by. Hold on. Who was that? About Trump. Yellowbird said that. I don't know. Hal Vickery, thank you so much.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, thank you. I love the expression on Putin's face when he said he wanted Kamala Harris to win. Yeah, like that whole I mean, they're still doing this.
I don't even know what that.
Thanks, Boston Brian, and thank you, Pam, and thank you, Kieran, for the super chats as well. Yeah. Chicago, how much time do we have? Great. 1 minute. 1 minute, 5 seconds. Okay, cool. So, couple of things we will get to, and I want to save the conversation about Tim Pool and Tenet Media and all that stuff for when Phil's on the air, because oh my God, is that thing metastasizing? Because that in and of itself could be a whole hour. Because good Lord, I don't know if you followed up on that, but the indictment is.
It is all ringing a bell, and I can't come up with it right now.
Okay, so there is the Russians paid $10 million to this company called Tenet Media in Tennessee, and paid Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and like 6 other people that were on their network to do these like anti-Ukraine videos, basically, and just divisionary videos, artificially boosted it. So we'll talk about that in the second hour with Phil, but again, this well-oiled screw-up machine. Tim Pool did that video where he was like, Ukraine is the enemy of this country, that we only have one. Like, he was slamming this. He was so mad. 4 days before this broke. So, yeah, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, infotainmentwars.com is our live stream, and Johnny Million will be farming questions for Philip Bittner, who will be joining us in the second hour, where I'm going to save the conversation about Tenet Media, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and the others that have been found to be part of a Russian influence scheme trying to affect the 2024 election. Shocking no one, by the way, especially on our side of the aisle, and that this it continues to be an incredibly efficient and cheap way for them to wreck democracy by turning our strength into a weakness, which is free speech, by misusing
and the maggots
that.
are just saying, yeah, the Democrats made that up.
Right. Well, and Donald Trump's reaction to it this week, and a lot of how the curious part is, not that Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and them, and we'll talk about that again, like I said in the second hour, are spouting talking points directly from a list of talking points that the Kremlin had, that the FBI and the DOJ have, and caught them basically purveying that, is that Donald Trump was saying the exact same thing at the exact same time over the last 15 weeks. Almost like they got the exact same memo. Shocker.
I love it.
That, at some point there will be what's effectively a second Mueller report about this. And that is, after Trump is, just a loose memory and a stain on American democracy. But we'll get, like I said, we'll get to that in the next hour because there's a lot of this. So, the shooting this week, which again, galvanized support across the country for stricter gun regulations on who can get them and why, and age restrictions and red flag laws, and because this kid had a visit before, this household should have been under red flag laws.
That's the amazing part to me.
Right. And it's not surprising. There's been, this is not an uncommon thing. What now is part of this, and this may be a reality setting in amongst, sort of the gun advocates that are out there that are in local and state governments, the Republicans out there that go, look, we got to do something, but we don't want to do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. So instead of bowing to red flag laws, what they're going to start doing, what they have started doing, and I'm for this alongside, raising the level of regulations that we have and yes, treating them like the serious weapons that they are, is charging the parents.
Yep. Especially in this instance.
14-year-old who had already had a run-in with the police about planning a school shooting, buys his son, this man buys his son at 14 years old an AR-15 with...
After getting the warning.
Yes. Yes, after the police had come, after they'd gone through this, this process where they're like, okay, we're not going to charge you, but... And he still gets it in this, basically as a Christmas present.
Let's make sure they charge us next time. Here you go, son.
Right. So watch for that to increase when that person is a minor, or that person is maybe, still living in the household, or under the age of 21 or under the age of 25, if they have mental health issues, meaning that the court would view those mental health issues, if as more of a responsibility of the parents to recognize them and know that their kid has ideations that are difficult. So even when that kid turns 18 or 21, they're not handling stress and problems like a 21-year-old. They're handling them like a 14-year-old. And being aware of that is also, makes you culpable in a situation where if you bought them a weapon of war and it even tried to teach them respect for it, like your, Dexter's
sure,
foster father, it does not work out that way. And so this is a workaround that Republicans are doing because they know they are up against the wall of public sentiment. Which is, I guess, the one good side is they are finally feeling the heat on this. They are not ready
to... abortion, what do they run on?
Right. Well, I mean, it's... you and I both remember, you and I were both in school when Lori Dan happened in Chicago.
Yep.
We were in school that day. They locked us down. The whole story was she had killed people and she was heading towards our school. She was walking south down Green Bay towards the school.
Yeah.
Was what we heard. Yeah, while we were there. And thankfully, that was our only experience with it. And thankfully, she was a woman that had a handgun. So even if she shot every bullet she had, 15 people would be in danger. Essentially, if she had a couple of, if she had a magazine and a half, essentially on her, and nobody knew, but when you're in a situation where these guys, they're buying their kids these rifles, and they're buying them with these long scopes on them and all kinds of stuff, and then they're buying them or allowing them to buy both, or together, 20, 30, 50 round magazines. They're playing zombie hunter prepper with their kid.
Yep.
Duct taping, two magazines together so you can quick flip, when you run out. Expect more and more Republican states, red states, who want to have the freedom to have guns, to start a process of charging parents more frequently even than blue states do, and trending the vote towards a more sensible gun policy. I think one of the biggest standouts between 90s cop movies and 80s cop movies was the assault weapons ban and the impact that it had. Because machine guns became a thing of the past. They were a common part of late 80s action films because they were a common part of gang warfare because of the availability of them and the legalization of modifying them. And again, it is the only reason Donald Trump is alive right now is that bump stocks were re-legalized by Clarence Thomas too late for crooks to buy one. If he had waited 2 more weeks, he would have been able to get one on the market again. They would have been regularly available. He could have ordered one and attached it. And then he would have, when he opened fire, he would have just obliterated everything that was downrange from him. He wouldn't have even had to aim. He could have just held his finger on the trigger, laid the gun sideways on the rooftop, and sprayed Trump and everyone behind him with bullet after bullet after bullet after bullet. It is only the fact that Clarence Thomas was not able to legalize those things before somebody tried to shoot at Trump that's the only reason Donald Trump's alive.
And is it just me, or does the response seem to be even more, rather than like, well, they typically say, let's not politicize it, but now they're saying, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. It's just a fact of life, says the only country where this still happens. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you want to talk about how Trump's reaction to being called weird and J.D. Vance being called weird is really working, by the way. It's really, really working. He is having a very hard time dealing, and it's such a simple thing. We've known for a long time, you and I've known, that he has very thin skin. But it's amazing that if Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and any of those guys had known how thin his skin was, the world would be different. We would be in a different world right now. Because he's much more, he's much more susceptible to insult than anybody knew on his side of the aisle. And during those debates, if they knew all they had to do was like, dude's weird. It's just such a weird thing. Like his fixation. Now he's a different man than he was then. He has decayed quite a bit, and and it's always projection with him that he is very afraid of his own mental decline. That is abundantly clear. And the question and answer about childcare this week went well beyond the normal failings of a politician with no policy, and went frighteningly towards old man sundowning. You brought up the fact that he was, that most politicians try to take whatever question they're given and get back to whatever they want to talk about.
Right.
Donald Trump has 2 things he wants to talk about. Tariffs will pay off the debt I created. Tariffs and oil drilling, because he thinks both of those are kind of a line. Oil will just like people buy oil. There's so much oil. We'll just make so much oil. We'll make so much money. We'll sell so much oil. We're going to be like the Saudis. We're going to, like everybody needs oil. There's going to be a glut of oil next year.
He has no idea how much oil we're creating now.
he has no idea we're the biggest oil producer in the world. We're at a peak of it. And he has no idea that China's decline is causing a decline in the oil market, which is going to cause a glut in it that will make the price drop next year. Inexorably, it will be a shock to the petroleum markets next year because, they're of the countries that are basically coming offline using oil. And he has no idea about this. He just wants to pilfer the land and thinks that it's automatically, oil. It's like he's stuck on the opening song of the Beverly Hillbillies, and forever and a day. And then he believes tariffs. He believes that money actually comes into the country as cash. I took in billions of dollars and I gave billions of dollars to our farmers. Which was
no, it comes out of the citizens' pockets who have to pay the higher prices that we've just created by making it more expensive to bring those goods into the country.
There was literally a CNBC analyst who heard his answer on this, and she literally said, "I can't understand Trump's crazy new economic plans." And she was sitting on a panel of people they were all going, I don't know what he thinks is going to happen. It went even beyond just the baseline gibberish to, this is the quote, her last name is Quick. That's her name, Becky Quick. Becky Quick said, the idea that you're going to raise a lot of money through tariffs and not have it be inflationary does not make a lot of sense to me. You are either changing behavior or you are raising money.
Inflation and do the same.
If you are raising money from it, it is inherently inflationary. Your consumers are not getting low prices. And everybody, and one of the other guys who is in Trump's contact list and has been listed in one of his court cases about his fraud, was equally perplexed at how Trump planned to hike tariffs on foreign goods without sending inflation into overdrive. He called Trump's plan a bad populist idea. And the rest of us were just like, you don't even have to go there. It's just nonsense. It is simply gobbledygook, the whole thing. And it's because he is a simpleton. And we got to take a break. But at some point, we have to deal with the fact that Donald Trump, when he says common sense, what he really means is common misconceptions. It was common sense at one point to think the world was flat because, look, as far as I can see, it just goes until my eyes don't work anymore. And there's a mountain range there, so it's probably more like it on the other. It was common sense that the sun revolved around the earth because I'm sitting here and there it goes. That's not common sense. That's a common misconception. And almost all of Trump's policies are based on common misconceptions. We'll be back right after this. It's the Housemarks radio program, Megaworldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I almost feel like I have to, for our listeners,
if you're playing something, I can't hear it.
Okay, you can't hear it? Hold on one second. Oh, I know what I have to do. I have to window, see, sound levels. That's what I want. There we go. Unmute system audio, and then you go.
The Housemarks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Hi, everybody. Booger. All right. Apologies, Chicago, if there's a bit of a feedback on when we come back. But yeah, it's amazing when yeah. This is what is this on? Yeah. This is a Daily Beast, but it's they're talking about like CNBC. Like, this is not people you want to alienate if you're Trump.
20 seconds.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
You heard that, and hopefully it
I
didn't
did.
feed back through. Yeah.
Did it feed back?
Nope, I don't think so. To them, I mean, that's the problem with Chicago. So, like, I apologize. I think I have echo cancellation turned on their audio, so it should be okay. But
Welcome back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
welcome back to the show. So, when you've lost Dick Cheney, honest to God, I first of all, I think most of us, like a couple of months ago, at least once we were like, is he still? Isn't he dead? like,
I didn't know he was alive, honestly.
Yeah, because when you think of him, you think of 7 heart attacks and a shotgun blast, and you're not quite sure of the order.
Right.
And so, but no, he is alive. He's old, super old,
Yeah.
and he, and he doesn't have he's got a bum ticker, and he doesn't have the benefit of good, clean living like Jimmy Carter does. So, Jimmy Carter's just hanging in there, man. Bless his heart.
So crazy. Yeah, we had written his obituary a couple months ago.
And can I just say, what a lovely man. And again,
Carter, of course.
this goes to that well-oiled crap the bed machine that Donald Trump is running over there. J.D. Vance brings up Kate Upton right as Trump gives and also the Iraq kind of answer to childcare, right? Just perfect timing, right? Donald Trump picks J.D. Vance as his running mate right before Biden steps aside, hands it over to Harris, and she picks one of the most charismatic sweethearts to be her VP that we've seen in a long time. Just a lovely, lovely dude in Tim Walz. A lot of people, myself included, were like, I don't know that much about Tim Walz. He's kind of a non-entity. To now, everybody's like, LFG, this guy's great. Yeah. And Trump picks J.D. Vance, who could not get worse at everything, to the point where Walz was great dunking on him. He made the couch joke and all that kind of stuff, and he's clearly kidding and all that stuff. But there was a real moment this week where Tim Walz was in a donut shop buying donuts, and he himself was amazed that it was kind of a big deal that he could order donuts like a normal person. Like that's a political factor because J.D. Vance is such a robot, right?
Yeah.
And then Dick Cheney comes out, and Liz Cheney endorses Harris, says she's voting for Harris. Dick Cheney's going to do it. At this point, you expect Satan to come out and go, look, everybody's got a line. Mine's Donald Trump. I never realized it. You know what I mean? Think of everything, all the awful I've ever created. Guys with little mustaches. You understand? Like, I did all of it. And I'm like, this dude, I can't do it. I can't do it. So, this is, and by the way, let me be abundantly clear. 2 things happened this week that everybody were freaking out about. One was sort of the Dick Cheney thing, because I was like, is that a good thing? Because Putin came out and said he supports Kamala Harris. And, he was clearly, this was clearly him being a psyop, cyclops. Right? A cyclops. Like always one eye winking. And, which is, clearly like it was meant to help Trump and flood the zone with BS, which is the Bannon, system. The other one was Trump's sentencing getting punted till after the election. And let me tell you, folks, that means that Mershon is going to give Donald Trump jail time.
Yeah, it's in anticipation of a real confinement kind of sentence.
A real confinement sentence, because Weisselberg got it, Cohen got it, and Donald Trump was running the thing. The idea that he won't get actual jail time from the charges he was found guilty of when the other guys went down is absurd. It's unfair, it's unjust, it's wrong, it makes no sense in terms of the sentencing. He directed all those kind of things. He threw everybody under the bus. He's been he wasn't compliant. He wasn't. He had no remorse. He attacked the judge and everybody who worked there. There was nothing about this defendant that says, well, it's a first-time offense. We'll give you a pass, but watch yourself. Nothing about this. And so Mershon is basically saying, I'm going to give this guy time, and it's going to be, you're going to start serving it right now. You are going to be cuffed and walked out of here and taken to jail. And he doesn't want to give Donald Trump the ability to marshal the entire Republican electorate before the election or cause violence before the election. And the idea that Trump's going to win, nobody believes that. And I think if there's any coordination between the DOJ and Mershon is them just looking at the polls, looking at how things are shaping up, and knowing that Harris has 9 paths to victory. Donald Trump has 1, and that one is withering by the day and is largely a fabrication of Nate Silver, who's also been paid.
What happened with that guy, man? That's
Peter Thiel.
Such a bummer.
Peter Thiel's what happened. Peter Thiel's the guy behind J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel's the guy who, along with J.D. Vance, came up with the money for Rumble and put Bongholio in charge of it, right? To run the thing. And so, yeah, Peter Thiel is, he's this bizarre, kind of political unicorn, this like borderline sovereign citizen, gay billionaire who doesn't know what side of the issues he's on. He just does not. And so he'd rather be against the country that allows the issues to happen. So, again, this Peter Thiel's the guy who wanted to buy an oil rig, declare it a country, and then make his own currency, his own crypto as the currency on it, and then just basically never pay taxes again because it's the kingdom of Thiel. But the problem was...
Great work if you can get it.
Hey, I don't have a problem with it. Go buy an oil rig off the coast of Venezuela or Saudi Arabia. See how well that works out when Somali pirates roll up on you. The reason he didn't do it, because he wanted one off the coast of California, so it would be a short helicopter ride to a real country. And the reason it didn't go through was because the United States was like, yeah, we don't sign like Bretton Woods protection agreements to protect you from pirates if your entire goal is to destroy our currency. Why would we? We don't do it with if pirates rolled up on North Korea tomorrow, you think the United States is like naval, ships would roll up to protect them the way they do with like the Red Sea blockades and shooting back at Houthis to make sure that like food gets to Africa, oil gets to Africa? No, we do that because we know if they interrupt that for long, millions of people die. Never mind the business aspect of it. Never mind the flow of commerce and the fact that, that if food's not going there, our food's not coming here, and we're going to have to cut down, some of our production is going to have to go there so that people don't die, and the mechanics of that. Never mind that entirely. But, the secondary financial aspect. We know, as the United States, that if the Houthis were successful stopping shipping through the Red Sea, tens of thousands of people start dying every day. They did. Yeah. Even with the slowdown that the Houthis were able to manage until we marshaled a response to it. We are protecting, this is the United States right now. We are protecting Russian ships bringing oil to China. 2 countries that want to do us in for all practical purposes. The people don't, but a number of them do, but largely the government does. Philip Bittner's waiting on the other side. He'll be with us in just 1 minute. And we're going to talk about this whole Tenet Media influence campaign that the Russians ran, and the fact that regular viewers of my live stream saw me about, I don't know what it was, maybe 2 weeks ago, cover this video of Tim Pool wigging out on Ukraine, which seemed at the time so over the top, even for the crowd that, the usual people. It seemed like he was pegging, like he was jockeying for more cash from Russia. Or was threatened that if you don't deliver, if they don't believe it when they watch your stuff, if you half-ass it at all, your life is in danger. It seemed that level of panic. So, we'll be back right after the news with Philip Ittner, who's live in Kyiv. And again, lots going on there. The Kursk offensive pushing forward. The Ukrainians are not giving up that land anytime soon. This tenant media thing is just a drop in the bucket. It is just the beginning. It's what Merrick Garland said this week, and there's more to come, and right-wing media is freaking out about it. We'll be back. Let me jump in and grab where is it? Boink. There we go. Now put in our guests real quick, Johnny. Here you go. And Philip Ittner joining us right now. There he is. Hey, Phil. How are you?
Hey, guys. Hey,
Phil.
yeah.
So,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Yes.
Also,
Okay, good.
I can't wait to talk to you about the tenant media stuff, the Benny Johnson, Tim Pool stuff after the week he's had. Mm-hmm. And then I want to make sure, I'm going to play a piece of audio. I want to make sure you guys can hear it beforehand. But it was Bongino basically warning people that people were cooperating. Yes. So I'm going to, I'll see if I can.
This is not done. This isn't done. More people are going to get caught.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of people rolling.
And I will warn you, guys, beforehand. I haven't had a proper night's sleep all week. They've been bombing the hell out of us.
Yeah. So I noticed you have power.
Punch drunk.
Yeah, I understood.
We do have power.
Actually,
power's been really good today.
Mm-hmm.
It's been steadily getting better. But they just
hang in there, buddy.
At like 3 a.m. every day this week.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke Skywalker yelling at me.
Yeah. I try not to bark at Mark when you see him.
Don't bark at Mark.
Don't bark at Mark.
Yeah.
Nope. He's always my Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to frame myself here a little bit better. Am I?
There you go. Yeah, you're good.
Is that okay?
You're good. It's centered. Yeah, you're pretty centered. Yep.
More or less. Yeah, but they've been absolutely pelting us, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because of the Iranian shipments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Iran is shipping a whole bunch of short-range missiles so that the Russians can hold on to their longer-range stuff and hit deep into Ukraine. So we are going to get pelted. Mm-hmm. And actually, it might be part of why we're getting pelted now. So.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so if I seem a little bit out of it, it's because I am seriously sleep deprived.
Sure.
Sorry to hear it, man. You look great.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
20 seconds.
Thank you.
You can't help but look good.
Thank you, Chicago. Oh.
I think this is it. Hold on.
Folks, I've never shown you this before.
Jesus.
And I debated showing it to you now. More than 26 names. People to bump.
Okay, hold on. That's not it. Is it? Let's see.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you if the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So welcome back to the show. Philip Ittner is joining us from Kyiv. He has power right now for what it's worth. And like a lot of people in Kyiv, has not gotten a good night's sleep. So if somebody in Chicago might need to ride the dump button just in case, as we're talking about some of these things today, slips through, which would be completely reasonable. And so the first thing I want to talk about is how are you doing? As per always, and
Okay, but as you mentioned, I mean, we've been getting absolutely pelted
yeah,
every day this week. Normally in the very early hours, and it's been intense. It's been a real intense barrage.
yeah,
Yeah, they are, and they're doing it on purpose.
yeah,
This is exactly what they want. They want us to be pushed to our limits, and
yeah,
it's not going to change anything. But it is undoubtedly, exhausting. I mean, I have not had a proper night's sleep all week because
right,
every morning, normally around 3 a.m., the air raid sirens start going off, air defense starts going up. Some things have gotten through. Some debris fell on the Parliament building or very near the Parliament building. Other cities are getting it just as bad, if not worse. There was a real tragic event out in Lviv. A man lost his entire family. He had 3 beautiful young daughters and his wife, all taken from him in one fell swoop, which is devastating. And to see him attend their funeral and to see those tiny caskets, because the children were not old. I think the
Yeah.
oldest one was maybe in her mid-teens. It's just devastating. It's disgusting. Poltava, the body count there is rather large. There's some accusations being, thrown around that it was a military school and there might have been like NATO advisors there.
That's the way they
I
always
mean,
do. Yeah,
yeah, of course. Regardless, they still, killed a bunch of cadets. Odessa's getting it in the neck. It's just they're really laying into us, and
right,
it's exhausting, and it's going to get worse because we do know there's a large shipment of Iranian missiles that are being sent to Russia, which will have a knock-on effect of letting them. They're apparently what the Iranians are sending to Russia are short to medium range missiles that can be used